All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Uh, pretty, pretty, oh, flat day in the market overall. I mean, market futures, they opened up higher. Show those to you here. And pretty much just like Tuesday, it's been just a slow, steady drift higher by a few points, nothing major. There are some interesting setups out there, some stocks making some moves, and we've talked about some of those. Let's go and take a look at our positions, and then we'll go take a look at some other stocks. Let's talk. Let's go with the challenge. We'll start here with Boeing. Boeing up about 1.2% here, up about a buck 65. Nice to see it holding above 138 here today. Would be really nice to start to see it push into that 140 level here come tomorrow, or even sooner than, or come tomorrow, granted, uh, and really confirm this trend rider action that it is setting up on here. Again, volumes are light, so there's not don't want to take too much out of this, but the price action remains strongly bullish here for Boeing. No plans to leave that. We've talked about rotating into a little bit of Tesoro. We are going to keep on Boeing here today. We'll still look at a Tesoro rotation, pulling a few Boeing off and getting a little Tesoro exposure. But when we look at Tesoro, we look at Boeing. Boeing overall has the more potential and the better chart. So we'll stick with that for now until we get a few more gains, and then we'll kind of make that adjustment. Take a look here at the Vibe and Trend Rider trades. Let's start with Chesapeake. Down what, 2 cents here? It was down almost 40 cents at one point here today. I know there had been some discussion about some of the potential breakdown here in the hourly chart. It's kind of climbed all the way back up. Again, low volume. Is this action very significant overall? Yeah, it's overall bullish. Continues to hold on to this 27 level. We could even kind of now look at this 27.20 level to tighten things up, but overall remains bullish. Could it open up tomorrow, move down to 27.40, 27.30? It sure could. But when we look at it from a daily standpoint, we still have Vibe, we still have Trend Rider aspects in play there. And then we have Nucor. Nucor up about 36 cents. It kind of made a little bit of charge midday today, pulled back a little, and is kind of just sat around the rest of the day. Continues on its trend rider, on its vibe, bull signals. Nothing really to adjust there. No real extended danger there for those particular charts. Earlier today, I mentioned Qualcomm. Okay, I mentioned Qualcomm and just talked about what was happening here with the chart. And again, this is very low volume, but look at Qualcomm and how tight these bands are. Okay, these Bollinger Bands on Qualcomm are some of the tightest that we've seen in years for Qualcomm. Just some of the most narrow bands. Qualcomm normally has much more volatility than this. We came down, got tight just briefly here in September, but these are very, very tight bands. The tighter the bands, generally the bigger the breakout. And Qualcomm's been consolidating, getting a little buying action coming into it today. I mentioned that if you want to be kind of aggressive and be an anticipatory buyer, you can buy Qualcomm here. If you want the confirmation above 74, kind of becomes the confirmation of the breakout and pushing higher there. I went and bought a small position here on Qualcomm today. Okay, nothing major, but I bought the 72 and a half, 70 January 72 and a half calls. Bought a small position and basically said I'll add to it if Qualcomm starts to move above 74. Okay. So Qualcomm go above 74, I'll add to it, but a little anticipatory buy. The risk reward on these, you're looking at the 70 January 72 and a half. You have about a buck 10 of real value and about 70 cents of fake value. That is a little bit high, especially for the season, the lighter volumes, and for having the new year coming up and the extra time decay that may roll in there. That said, the options are extremely cheap if we do see a breakout on Qualcomm, and I do expect to see some sort of $78 to $80 price target uh, if we see a breakout there in Qualcomm. So you get a little more conservative going to the 70s or going out into February. But for those of you who think, hey, you want to play for a move right here, right now, be a little anticipatory. The 72 and a halves are quite interesting. Okay. As far as a stop out point on Qualcomm, really, the as it's consolidating here, you could argue there's a little bit of a breakout if you kind of come to the hourly chart. Above 73 and a half is a little bit of a breakout. For me, I've basically said I'm going to buy a little bit, and if it goes above 74, I'll get in a full position, and I'm not going to worry about this smaller position. If it does pull back, I'll stay in and maybe get a bounce up or something. But if you wanted to put a full position on, I'd use something like 73 as a stop. I would be pretty tight with that. I would not get too loose with that stop overall. Okay. I noticed a little chatter on AKS. AKS we talked about back here when it was pushing above $6 and how it was a buy above 6. They had the real good news where their earnings. They talked about raising some of their earnings guidance and has pushed that up to $8 is the price target there on AKS. I can't argue anybody staying in it right here, but yeah, it's been a nice run. I wouldn't be trying to push it any more than that. I do think we will get a little bit of a rotation into some of the lagging steel plays, like the Nucor, like the U.S. Steel. Even some of the things like MT can get some interesting moves here, and kind of piggyback off of some of that strength with the U.S. Steel and AKS there. Okay. Um, Sorry, just looking over my notes real quick. There was a question here about the ADX and about the RSI and some of the various indicators. And I'm not going to answer any indicator questions right here. I will as we talk about the technical analysis, but as we get into the close, I'm going to kind of forgo that, except to say that most indicators have some overlap. The MACD has some aspects of it that are very similar to the ADX. The stochastics and the RSI have similar aspects. And most of the individuals who develop these indicators, the RSI, Wells Wilder, who developed the RSI back in the 70s, basically said if you put him in a room and gave him the RSI to trade with, he'd never make any money. He needs more than just the RSI. And that's the way most indicators are, and we'll start to dig a lot deeper into those. Okay. Western Refining, Valero, Tesoro, these refiners. Okay. Um, the UGA, the gas index, keeps going up. Okay. It's had a little bit of volatility today, but continues to mount a nice little charge. But so does oil. Okay, oil continues to press higher here, so the crack spreads aren't improving tremendously, but you know the momentum is still strong for these refiner names. Valero new high, okay, Valero brand new high here. Western Refining, what is it? A couple pennies off an all-time high after a beautiful trend rider breakout on Monday. Okay, big trend rider breakout, vibe bull signal, trend rider bull. Yeah, it's pulling back a few pennies here. It's insignificant, the pullback. No volume, no news, no nothing there. And could it pull back to 40 and retest? Yeah, it could. For those of us not in it, that's kind of what we're rooting for. For those of you who are in it, you say, you know what, let's forget 40 and let's just go. And both are a possibility. Tesoro has been consolidating. Okay, it's been in this consolidation. It's been sticking up here towards the top end of the consolidation now for 3 days. That bodes well for a breakout. Okay. Above 58 and a half is pretty strong for Tesoro as long as it doesn't hit there first thing in the morning on a light volume day. Maybe I throw that caveat in. Um, it pushed above there this morning, but not really on any type of volume. There weren't really orders triggering around that, just a couple. Bulk of the trading's been down below 58 and a half. Tesoro has all the signs of a stock ready to break out and go on a tear. And chances are it'll be one of those days where you know what, it's just up $2 and off it goes. I would, if I were into Tesoro right now, I would like it. I'm not into Tesoro just yet. I would like to pull a couple Boeing off and rotate into Tesoro, but again, that decision not to pull a couple off of Boeing and rotate into Tesoro has more to do with Boeing strength than it does to any Tesoro weakness there. Okay, so both in a very nice position. Can that change? Can that change? Yeah, and one of the tough things about Tesoro is that if it's at 57, it's still in a good setup at 56, even around 55. It's not really a breakdown. And so it's one of those, the lower it goes, it's almost the more tempting it is to buy. Uh, and that can make for a difficult call trade. If you're in it right here, right now, I would just kind of use the 7-day moving average and say, you know what, we're going to get the move now, or I'll bump out and then wait for it till it is ready to move. Okay. Yeah, Tesla. My take on Tesla. I was going through my notebook here today and going through some of the various stocks that I'm tracking, and on Tesla I wrote big old question mark. Okay, that's what I wrote. Tesla's had some good news. 2 days in a row essentially, right? And Tesla could easily go into the 160, 170. At the same time, there are some short orders that are growing, some put action that's growing, some valuations that are extremely stretched here for Tesla in the short term without any sort of earnings. For me, I've kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to wait till the next earnings with Tesla, reevaluate it from there, and see if there's any sort of trade opportunity. But at this point, I don't see any great setups as it's in a small bullish trend with it that's kind of retracing a bearish move. To see this thing come back down and go into double digits is very possible. To see it go into new highs, it really just kind of depends on what the news cycle for Tesla is going to be like over the next little bit here. Okay. Yeah, for Tesoro, the options here on Tesoro, the one thing here, these January 60s, and when we talked Tesoro the other day, I said these would be really interesting down around $1.20. They got down to $1.20. They went almost to $1.10 earlier today. Um, and anywhere around $1.20, I think they're a really good value. You do need to see a big move into Tesoro for them to perform. You have a lot of decay. You're out of the money by about $1.80, right? $1.70 right now. So the January 60s would be very, very aggressive. The 55s are going to be a little less aggressive from a risk reward standpoint. But it's almost one of those things where with Tesoro, it may be worth going out to February and looking at something like a February 55 and just holding that and riding that through the early part of 2014. Okay, you can also make a good argument for a spread here on Tesoro. There's the way the stock price is set within the strike prices. There's not a great value here. The January 60s are a little aggressive. The 55s are a little conservative. And so you almost look at this as some sort of debit spread, some sort of call spread to the upside that could take out some of the time decay that you'll experience holding on to Tesoro. Okay. Um, Yeah, SPM. Out of the money on Tesoro is going to be very aggressive, right? It's extremely aggressive. And one of my hesitations with, pulling some Boeing off and rushing into Tesoro is there's not an option here that just says, hey, this is a great value. They're still just a little, yeah, I mean, these January 60s could triple on you. I mean, Tesoro can go up 10% in 3 days and they'll triple for you. But, it's not in for me, a prime position that I would like to see. Okay. Um, Overall market. Okay. Look, we're talking bullish. All the signals out there are bullish. The market continues to set a brand new high. Is it overextended? Sure, we could make arguments that it's overextended, but the arguments that it's overextended are about as weak as the arguments that the market was overextended back here in October or back here mid-September or July. They're the same arguments that you could have used all year for arguing the market's overextended. It may be easier to make the argument that the market's kind of blowing off its top. It's getting an exhaustion rally here. That might be a little easier of an argument, but so far there's no signs to the downside. It is rare to see the market close in the upper Bollinger Band 3, 4 days in a row. That is a rare thing. I would not be surprised to see a small pullback tomorrow morning or something like that, or even into the close here today. But at the same time, the bullish strength is really there. And everybody is participating. Small caps are participating. Yeah, they're underperforming a little bit today, but they've outperformed the last 3 days. If you look at the sectors, you have the energy sector setting a new 52-week highs, the material sector new highs, the industrial sector new highs, financial sector new highs. All of the real kind of cyclicals, the names that you would expect to perform when the market's going up to show a sign of healthiness are performing. We're no longer in a market that's being led by consumer staples and utilities. We're not in that environment. Healthcare, which had been leading the market much of the year, has been lagging here just a little bit. In favor of some of the more cyclicals and some of the more risk on type of investments or trades out there. Okay, so no real weakness. If we go look at some of the signals, a lot of the S&P 500 stocks and Dow stocks, you really don't have bear signals. The only thing you can really argue is maybe they're consolidating. Maybe you get a 2 to 5% pullback. Or something like that. Can things change when the new year starts? Absolutely, they can change. Absolutely, they can change, but for now, things just keep mounting there to the upside. Okay. Carl is away until the new year, so we won't have Carl's top three. I mentioned Qualcomm here today as far as one of those that it's a little early for Carl's top three. He may put it on for a vibes bull signal here, but I know that Carl would like here with Qualcomm. And I am sure that if he were here, he would absolutely love that. Another one here from that Carl would probably be looking at and saying, you know what, this is really interesting. Is something like Lowe's. Or Home Depot. You can argue, yeah, maybe they've run a little bit too far, but they are picture perfect as far as their technicals with the Vibe and with the Trend Rider, and Home Depot with all signs pointing out to $84 to $86 there, in a decent position there. Okay. Yeah, Netflix. One of the weak things about the market, some of the momentum stocks have been a little weaker today. A lot of activity on Twitter, with Twitter up big, down big, and all over the place. That's where most of the activity has been. Apple's been a little bit weak here today. With Netflix here, is the move below the 7 here ultra significant? No, not really. Okay, not really. It's Netflix doesn't always run with the 7 purely. Um, but if that's your stop point, if that's your kind of line in the sand to say enough's enough with Netflix, I would look to get out. The one thing about this 370, 380 area, this is where we started to see all that selling on the earnings gap up. To have some residual selling up here left, very probable. To see this thing just kind of flatten out for a while, very probable. What it would pretty much need is some sort of event or news, upgrade, positive catalyst to get it above these earnings reaction highs and kind of forget about what that whole mess was. Yeah, SLW. This morning I mentioned that Tuesday these miners, the silver, the gold miners, they reacted really well on Tuesday, even though gold and silver weren't up real big. Okay, gold today opened up higher and it's pretty much sold off a little bit, trickled lower all day. Silver, kind of the same thing. The SLV gapped up and trickled lower the rest of the day. Look, these things are still in serious downward trends, both gold and silver. There are some bullish arguments for them. We have some positive divergence with gold, with silver relative to gold, which tends to be positive. You can argue that gold's bouncing off some of these reaction lows here. Then you can take a look at silver and say, well, it never got down to the July lows, putting in a little bit of a double bottom here at 18 and a half. You can kind of stretch a few bullish arguments here, but the trends are still strongly negative. And what I would like to see in order to be aggressive with these is either some sort of trend rider signal or some sort of lower high set in. How does it react to the next sell off? With SLW, does it decide to go down to 19 or does it decide to say, you know what, we're not going below 20? Buyers are stepping in. If you're buying the SLW here, it's a very, very aggressive buy, and I would set it up that way, kind of an all or nothing type of a trade. I do think SLW and some of these gold miners, as some of their implied volatilities have dropped significantly, are actually becoming candidates for straddles. Very interesting straddle candidates. Okay, where you can buy the call, you can buy the put, you can get in on them cheap, and whichever way they decide to bust, then you're in a good position there. Okay. AON is very typical of many of the other stocks out there. Strong upward trend, consolidations up near highs. There's nothing bearish here at all. You could really argue AON is just kind of, just pausing, just resting. It is low volume, but AON, all in all, is low volume. But there's nothing bearish here. There's just nothing bearish here overall. SCTY, Solar City. Has it run out of steam, Adam's money? Um, Look, the Solar City, and all you have to do is just take a look back in hindsight and look at the charts and just kind of look at how much this can move and how insignificant a $2 move is for Solar City. Um, it's up today. It's up 2%. It's a little bit off its highs. There's nothing bearish here. This is an overall bullish pattern with it holding 55, consolidating above 55. The pattern still remains very bullish in the short term, in the medium term, and the long term trend still remains very strong. I would be concerned on Solar City if it had huge volume here today and came off of its highs like it has. But with the light volume coming off its highs the way it has, there's really no concern there as far as it running out of steam there. Okay. All right, so that's kind of Solar City, and it's got a mind of its own. It's not even really moving, with the solar sector in general. Okay, in fact, the solar sector in general looks to have a little bit more weakness coming in as some of the price of oil, some of the rotation into some of the oil stocks is continuing here. Okay. All right, so as we head into the close, Boeing, no change here, up about 1% here today. Trend rider vibe signals here. Okay, then we have Nucor up about what 0.75%, continuing in its trend, and we have Chesapeake, which after being down big today has actually gone positive. Again, light volume. Still really good setup and everything here for Chesapeake. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for hopping on. Any questions, please let us know, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.